Well, ladies and gentlemen, the news broke yesterday that Luke Fickell is headed to Wisconsin to be the new head football coach of the Wisconsin Badgers football program. Shocking news to me, and I'm sure to many of you others out there around Big 12 country. What is up, college sports fans, fellow members of Mountaineer Nation? This is Coos, and welcome into another edition of Coos' Corner. Pull a chair up and let me and my guest serve you up a shot of top-shelf college football content today on tap in this episode. I am joined by Jay Sorgi, and we are going to talk Luke Fickell to Wisconsin, what it means for the Bearcats, what it means for the Badgers, and we'll even talk a little bit about my West Virginia Mountaineers in the process. What is up, Jay Sorgi? How you doing?
Doing fantastic. Do not be fooled by the Marquette sweatshirt. That's my alma mater. I could not find my Married to a Mountaineer t-shirt, unfortunately. It's somewhere in the laundry, but I am married to a Mountaineer. So that's where I get my connection to WVU and fandom there. And our son is a big fan of theirs as well. So absolutely part of Mountaineer Nation.
That's awesome. And we welcome you as part of Mountaineer Nation. And it's okay if you cheer for other teams too, because anytime there's a family connection, you've got to cheer on that team, right? When you have the opportunity.
There's not been a college football conflict with the Mountaineers since 2003 when the Wisconsin Badgers, I'm from Wisconsin, I worked for the radio network for a couple of years. That was, I think, their last meeting, and that was the year before I met my wife, so it was safe to be in a relationship with her at the time.
I got you.
after we met.
I hear you. Hey, so real quick, speaking of that, I want you to tell folks, number one, where they can find you at now, and a little bit about your background too, so kind of give them a little bit of context while we're talking about what we're talking about today on this show. And
absolutely. You see the name Sorgi Stories right there in the box. That is the YouTube channel that our son and I do. We do a lot of sports content. We've been doing sports live streams for this year, but we've also done a lot of vlogging, a lot of sports experience vlogging, game watching experience, travel experiences, including a West series in West Virginia and our travels there. So that's a lot of the stuff that we do. We do a lot of food reviews. So if you're traveling around different parts of the country, you can check out some of the stuff, including some great West Virginia restaurants as well. But I worked in Milwaukee, Wisconsin for 22 years at WTMJ Radio in Milwaukee. And I was blessed with the opportunity to be the pregame show host for the Wisconsin Badgers radio network for a couple of years, including their first of 3 straight Rose Bowl seasons in 2010, the year before Russell Wilson came to Wisconsin. And that year I was a features reporter with the network. And I had a chance to cover the Badgers for a long time, as well as being part of the Green Bay Packers radio network. Now I'm with KYW News Radio here in Philadelphia. And we moved to Philly so we could get closer to West Virginia.
Awesome. Yes. What is the drive from Philly to Morgantown, just ballpark?
To Morgantown, it's only about 4 hours.
4? Okay.
So it's a possible drive back and forth if you really want to stretch it. If you got like a 3:30 kickoff, we could do it. Yeah,
you're actually not that much further away than I am here in the southern part of the state, believe it or not. It's kind of weird, isn't it?
I believe it.
I'm 3.5 hours away up I-79, so nice. 77, 79.
Yeah, my wife's from Charleston, so absolutely.
So you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
All right, let's dig in. What in your mind, obviously the big story broke yesterday, Luke Fickell to Wisconsin. I didn't see it coming. I figured Luke Fickell would stay at Wisconsin until either Ohio State or Notre Dame may come calling again. Didn't see him jumping anywhere else. I know he had turned down West Virginia in the past, supposedly because there wasn't enough Catholic schools in the region for him. He's a big, very devout Catholic, and he has a lot of children. So just real quick, what do you think was enticing for Luke Fickell to make this move now?
You mentioned one thing that I didn't have knowledge about, and I think that plays a part because Madison and the southern part of Wisconsin is a very Catholic area.
Okay.
That may play a piece in it.
Okay.
But I think in terms of the college football aspect in itself, Wisconsin has been looking, you could say they've been looking, but I think the Wisconsin fan base has been looking for the opportunity to finally leapfrog themselves into where they're in the Ohio State. They're in the now Michigan category of being able to compete for Big Ten titles and get in the college football playoff and play for national championships. They've had 30 years of good to very, very, very good but not yet good enough to win a national title or really compete for one, because they haven't had the big play passing game capability. They've been ground and pound. They've been what you call Barry ball. Barry Alvarez.
Right.
His coaching philosophy on the offensive side has been that for 30 years, and all his coaches, except for Gary Anderson, were proteges. I think Wisconsin realized they have to take a step outside of Barry ball, go outside the box to get a coach that can put them in championship discussion.
Okay.
Luke Fickell can do that, number one. He also is going to be inheriting a top 15 program in terms of revenue. And now with this hire, I think they're going to be top 10. I think the NIL situation is very lucrative to get recruits in there, because within 2.5 to 3 hours of Madison, 37 Fortune 500 companies.
Wow.
You've got national capability because Chicago is so close and Milwaukee is so close.
Okay.
To get, say, a top like 5-star quarterback onto television screens, onto your phones with advertising, that's going to be a pretty lucrative opportunity for recruits. I mean, and the other thing too, yes, Ohio State, Notre Dame, if they came calling, how could you not at least look at them? But those are universities where you're going to be adding to a legacy. Wisconsin's never won a national title. They have been really good for 30 years. They've never won the big one. Barry Alvarez built a foundation. But if a coach like a Luke Fickell wins a title, wins it all in Madison, that skyscraper is the program, and they're going to name the skyscraper after.
Right.
I mean,
makes sense.
They're going to knight the guy. He will never have to buy a beer or a steak in Wisconsin the rest of his life, just by winning one title.
Right. Oh, yeah. Hey, as a West Virginia fan, I get it. You know, we've never won a title either.
You understand.
I mean, that's one of the reasons Bob Huggins didn't win a title, but he took us to a Final Four in basketball.
Yeah.
Now the guy can almost do no wrong in the state of West Virginia. So,
boom.
I mean, I totally see what you're saying, and it makes a lot of sense. And I'm glad you explained that, because, but I mean, Cincinnati is going to be a Power 5 program, and then so I'm glad you explained some of the advantages he would have there in Madison versus maybe somewhere in the Cincinnati or in a smaller market, you know, or somewhere that may not have the NIL opportunity, because NIL is a big deal now.
Yep.
And every coach knows it, and every coach is going to want to be at a school that can get in those top flight guys. And to be honest, I think NIL is a big reason Shane Lyons got fired at West Virginia, to be honest with you.
That makes sense.
Because he was not really some people say he wasn't embracing the NIL world like he should be, and wasn't really doing enough to try to, I guess, do what he can within the legal boundaries to assist with it, because there are certain things programs can do legally with NIL, and I don't know that he was doing that enough. So NIL is a big deal, and it makes a lot of sense with the Chicago connections, the corporate connections there. So I appreciate you explaining that. And the Catholic piece, I was wondering about that, because I wasn't sure what the Catholic population was like in Madison, but apparently it's very big there. So that would make sense why he would choose somewhere like that versus a place like Morgantown that has, my understanding, no Catholic high schools in Morgantown.
Yeah, there's one parish, I think, in the whole city, and that's the university's Catholic, what they call the Newman Center. And that's it in the whole town. I can tell you in Milwaukee, which is where I'm from, it's 25% Catholic. In fact, I think it's even 30% Catholic. Okay. Madison, pretty similar. So that would make a difference to someone where, I mean, if their faith is that important to them. It was that way with Paul Christ as well. That's part of the reason why I love Madison.
And I haven't looked and seen the details of the contract. Have you seen the details of the contract anywhere yet? Has that come out?
I have not. I haven't seen it particularly myself. And I know that they tend to not publicize everything immediately.
Right.
But that's public record because it's a public university. So we'll find that out. But I would think if you're already a top 15 program and you're going after a coach that's going to win you at least a possibility of a national title down the road, or at least compete for championships, he's going to get paid. He's going to get paid big, and the donors don't mind it. They get it. Wisconsin is that university's meal ticket.
Well, I
footballs.
saw the number $6 million thrown around on social media, and I saw an article that said they were willing to pay at least $6 million, but I don't know if that was actually his deal. But then, so I'm thinking $6 million is not as big a number as I envisioned. And then he was only making $5 million at Cincinnati, so I'm thinking, would he really make the jump for $1 million? So it'll be interesting to see if he did. And I also wonder, and Cincinnati fans that are watching can let me know in the comment section. It's my understanding the Cincinnati AD has not been there that long, so he was not the AD that hired Luke Fickell there. Was there any type of, differences of opinion, differences of vision as for the program? Did they see eye to eye on things? The person you work for can make or break your job. I mean, we all know that. So I'd be curious to know from Cincinnati fans, was there any issues there knowingly between the AD and Luke Fickell? Because that would also make sense as to why he would leave that program, one that he supposedly loved being at, and especially being an Ohio guy, right?
Very possible. At the same time, it's a Big Ten program. It's a Big Ten program with massive money.
Right.
And you can have the best relationship in the world with your athletic director, but you got to jump at it. It's like when I remember when Tom Crean left Marquette to go to Indiana in the basketball world. And what he basically said during his press conference was, I loved Marquette. I loved coaching there. That atmosphere was fantastic for my family. But it's Indiana. I mean, Wisconsin isn't Indiana in terms of that pedigree.
Right.
But it's a leap. It's a leap
right.
up. And it's the kind of a program that if you get a tweak of your offense, if you make it big play passing to go with that ground and pound, you make it an NFL style offense, you can compete for national titles.
Right. All right. The other interesting piece of this, I know there were a lot of fans and even some in the media who felt like Jim Leonhard would probably get that job. What do you think this means for him? And then two, another piece of that question is, why do you think they chose Luke Fickell over Jim Leonhard?
To tell you just how much I think Leonhard felt he was the coach in waiting in Madison, he was offered the Green Bay Packers defensive coordinator job, and he turned it down. He turned it down to stay in Madison. He knew within his mind, within his heart, they were going to him. He was going to be the next guy.
Yeah.
And he went 4-2 in Big Ten play. He didn't play Ohio State. He didn't play Michigan in that sequence. But that's still not bad.
Right.
That's still not bad. At the same time, if you are athletic director Chris McIntosh and you're looking at the comparison, okay, Jim Leonhard, unproven head coach, did pretty good, had a few bumps in the road in those final games, the loss to Minnesota, but he's going to be a great coach, but it's going to be a project. There's going to be a waiting game compared to Luke Fickell. He's been a top assistant at Ohio State, one of the blue bloods of college football that's won championships. He's got those on his resume as an assistant. He took a then group of 5 school to the college football playoff and played respectably against Alabama, though they got beat pretty good. I mean, that to get blown out by Alabama in a playoff game with a group of 5 team is not a sin. So you know what you're getting with Luke Fickell, and you know he's going to be around a long time, and he's ready right now to make Wisconsin a contender.
Yeah.
Who do you pick?
Yeah,
and
makes sense.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate for Leonhard, really unfortunate for Leonhard, because of this denial of what he thought was going to be his. It's the business, and I know enough about both Leonhard and Chris McIntosh, the athletic director, that it's not a personal thing between them. Right. It's just a circumstance. You have to make the move.
Yeah, that makes sense. I hate it for Leonhard too, because the guy, like you said, he passed up big opportunities, but he's a young man. He's a young coach, so I'm sure there will be a lot more opportunities come his way, maybe even some head coaching opportunities, where he can get his feet wet, grow his resume, and then move on and maybe one day get that Power 5 job that he aspires to get. And who knows? He can land at Wisconsin one of these days. If things don't work out with Fickell, or Fickell happens to move on to something else or whatever, or maybe the Green Bay Packers job. I mean, they're struggling right now. So maybe that job opens back up, who knows?
He would be a very good candidate to become, again, the defensive coordinator of the Green Bay Packers if that opens up. Their D coordinator, Joe Barry, has been lambasted for his defensive performance. They gave up 363 yards last night to the Eagles. Yeah. So his job is at stake.
Yeah.
The really interesting thing, and I wanted to see what you thought about this as well, because you know the program 10 times better than I do. Because of the fact that Shane Lyon's firing, the athletic director job, they still haven't necessarily filled it, and they want the AD to pick it. And I know everything about Neal Brown, the possibility of him staying. Would the AD pick, and the fact that it might be coming relatively soon, if they hire an AD in time for when the NFL coaching window comes about, the NFL Black Monday, if you will, where head coaches, assistant coaches are fired, and you've got people that are looking for jobs and looking for openings, that's when Jim Leonhard might be open to taking some sort of a new position. Would the West Virginia job be open, and I know it's all based on who the AD is going to be, but could Jim Leonhard be in play in Morgantown
for head coach or defensive coordinator? Either or.
Yeah, either or.
Who knows? Yeah, who knows?
And he could be a great head coach.
Yeah, he could be. Here's my personal opinion on that.
Sure.
I have been an advocate that Neal Brown needs to go. I like the guy. He's a great guy, but he just hasn't gotten it done here. And I think they need to move in a different direction. I think our program is in a place now it's way too risky to hire somebody without experience.
Okay.
Because, like you said, when you were comparing Fickell and Leonhard, because if we get 4 or 5 more years of losing, our program is at an all-time low. I mean, we're almost there now. We can't afford to get worse. So if basically this next hire has to hit, or we could end up being the next Nebraska, the next whatever program you can name that went into 10 or 15 years of consecutive losing seasons. We don't want to end up that way. So I think it'd be risky to hire somebody that doesn't have head coaching experience. So I would actually prefer them to hang on to Neal Brown versus hiring somebody like Jim Leonhard. Now, that doesn't mean Leonhard's not a good coach. I just think for West Virginia and the timing of this thing, it'd be too risky. But now if Brown stays and is forced to make changes on his staff and they want to look at Leonhard for defensive coordinator, I have absolutely no issue with that.
And I think that's where perhaps having coaches that are considered for NFL coordinator positions who could also be college head coaches, that maybe could be your window to look at guys who, if you want to go outside the box, the one name that I immediately think of, it goes against what you're discussing in terms of someone with head coaching experience, and I completely understand the need for stability. The one guy that comes to mind, and this is maybe just an example of who you could go after, and I have no clue if he's interested in becoming a college head coach, Byron Leftwich.
Yeah.
I think whoever the AD is should at least make a phone call, at least start a conversation with him. He has entree in West Virginia because of his time at Marshall. And anything that the one thing that he can do that no one else could do in terms of the recruiting battle, you want to get a top flight quarterback? Hey, 5-star recruit, 5-star, 4-star quarterback. See this? The Super Bowl ring? Yeah, I won this with Tom Brady. I can teach you Tom Brady quarterbacking. I can get you to the pros by teaching you what I learned and taught to Tom Brady.
Yeah.
You don't think there's a 5-star or 4-star quarterback who wouldn't salivate at the thought?
Oh, yeah. I think it's a great idea.
That's what he could bring you. Now, again, it's not somebody with head coaching experience. It would be a culture change for him. It would be a transition. But I think you've got immense capability to do something special. But the other question is, are you going to will West Virginia pay top 10, top 15 money for a guy like Leftwich.
Yeah, probably not. I mean, just to be straight up with you, I don't know that we could afford it, but and I don't, because I had actually heard somebody else throw his name out before, and I heard, and I don't know if this is true, I haven't looked it up, but I heard he was only making about $800K a year as offensive coordinator in Tampa Bay. If that's the case, you could pay him $3-4 million a year potentially, and still he might be interested. But at the same time, would he rather wait and be a head coach in the NFL, because he's, his name has been connected to a few of those jobs as well in the past couple of seasons. But I like the idea because, like you said, great pedigree, the Super Bowl ring, that speaks volumes to a high school kid and to a family.
Yep.
Imagine being a mom and dad sitting in your living room and a Super Bowl winning NFL coordinator walks in your door that's coached the greatest of all time, right? I get it. And if they're going to look at somebody outside the box, I think he's somebody you definitely have to look at, or at least consider. At least pick up the telephone, say, hey, would you be interested? And with his connections, I'd like to think he could put together a great staff. So even if he doesn't have experience, he could bring in assistants to help fill that gap. You bring in the coordinators that have tons of years of experience at the college level and that are great recruiters, because he's never recruited before. So you bring in some guys who've recruited before. If you let him be a CEO type guy, focus on the recruiting piece and bring in the right staff, I think it would work. I don't see why it wouldn't. So I think it's a great outside the box idea.
It's just a matter of, is WVU willing to put up the money to do it? And I think it could be really similar to what you saw with Wisconsin and Luke Fickell. If it's the right guy, the donors are gonna donate. Mm-hmm. If it's the right guy, and I think because he's got West Virginia connections, there could be something there.
Yeah. But real quick, everybody, Jay Sorgi, once again, he's Sorgi Stories on YouTube. I've got his Twitter handle at the top of the screen there, at Jay Sorgi, at JSORGI. You can find me on Twitter at Coos206, on Instagram at Coos' Corner 206. Please like, share, comment, subscribe to this video, to this channel, and also to Sorgi Stories. Check Jay out and his, I think it's your son that collabs with you.
Father-son project. It's,
awesome.
It's what he dreamed of doing for years. So
awesome.
Dad finally caved in, and I'm a content creator by trade. Made total sense.
Awesome. Great. Now, so Jay, anything else you want to touch on or talk about before I let you jump off here and get back to your day?
I think we touched on the main things. Absolutely. And I think this is, for WVU, this is a major time for a pivot, a major time to completely redefine your program. Take advantage of it and be willing to look outside the box and maybe make that type of a big splash hire. I mean, whoever it is, whether it's Leftwich or somebody else, don't be afraid to go big, because that's how you win titles.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree. I'd like to see him change it up. I got a friend of mine, Mountaineer Paul. You may have seen some of his work.
Sure.
He's a huge advocate for Coach Prime. He wants Coach Prime so bad he could. I mean, he's just. Of course, I don't think we'd ever get him. But why not at least make the phone call, right? Why not shoot for the moon, right? Shoot for the stars. See, all they can do is tell you no.
Boom. Right.
You have to try. Then that's what these guys get paid the big bucks to do.
Boom.
All right, Jay. Thank you again for hopping on here, man. And it's been a lot of fun. We'll have to do this again sometime.
You got it.
Everybody, thank you for tuning in. And until next time, Q Country Roads.